So again, we'll learn for Shlema 4. Let's have those names with a terrible accent. Unfortunately, here in Beit Shemesh, we'll learn for Shlema. And Baruch Hashem, we've reached Chodesh Kislev, which is a major accomplishment, thank God. Baruch Heshvan is behind us, and Kislev always brings a special good things for Klal Yisrael. And there was a wonderful bit of news that did come out in this past week or so, correct? That the Trump administration was going to, there was a reverse of the decision that unfortunately we were left with former President Obama, that allowed the United Nations Security Council to pass a resolution declaring that anything over the green line of any territories captured in 67, Kolel, the old city, Kotel, etc., Har that were by international law belong to the Palestinians. That was their declaration, and the United States, Secretary of State Pompeo came and reversed that decision, saying that the settlements there are not illegal, and the immediate ramification was that a new neighborhood of Hebron appeared right on the heels of which parsha? Parshas Chaye Sarah, which is the kinyan of Klal Yisrael, of Eretz Yisrael, through the acquisition of the land of Hebron. And therefore, I knew about 40, 50,000 people there. So I think we should not lose that shouldn't be lost upon us, that we made another kinyan in Hebron, and it should be a kinyan olami, and that the entire Yehuda Shomron, including Gaza and everything else, should be recognized as part of Eretz Yisrael and beyond, because we're even going to be many lands beyond that, but we're not quite ready for that just yet until the Shiur comes.
Excuse me, let me, if I understood properly, the United Nations voted something bad, and the United States what?
Now, in the third year of Trump's presidency, they reversed what happened at the very end of Obama's presidency. America never voted for it, but they allowed it to pass, which means it became pervasive law. Now, the other thing that happened, which is very, very important in the context of our Shiur, is we've been talking about the fact that we are in a staged progression of the Geula, right? And that a number of things are milestones, millstones, markers. The return of the Jewish people to Eretz Yisrael, the building of Yerushalayim, the land going through its process of tahara, purification, for the observing of the laws of Shemitah and the laws of Shumas and Maasros. So I have my lemon tree, I do Shumas and Maasros on my lemon tree. So that's a process of bringing life back to Eretz Yisrael and to Am Yisrael. So the stage that we've reached, however, is, according to the Vilna Gaon, is called Anshe Amana. Yerushalayim was destroyed because the Jewish people did not have just and honest leadership, corrupt leadership. Anshe Amana literally means, for Shlema, Anshe Amana literally means people who can be trusted, like the word Amen. In other words, you have imun in them, you have faith in them, emunah. People for great faith and integrity. And as I mentioned, that's been the issue, both central issue here, prosecution, law, due process. Are we using judicial tools to make political gains, etc.? And especially in the United States, the core institutions of law enforcement, FBI, are right now under the spotlight, and everybody's saying, there's something rotten, and with the abuse of vice presidential power and so on and so forth. And here in Israel, of course, the Praklitut, the decision to prosecute Netanyahu, has come under a lot of scrutiny, and international lawyers, most famous Jewish lawyer in America, Alan Dershowitz, used to be a nice frum boy at one point, and he says it's ridiculous, it's against any standard of law. It's being battled, it's a battle, but the battle is a purification process. So that's good. We have to separate out what? The Tov and the Ra. And that's the process we're in, because we're moving away from the Eitz Hadas Tov Ra period, which will terminate with the millennial Shabbos, and we're moving towards the Eitz HaChaim. Now, Eitz Chaim, always we have Torah, but literally the revelation of all aspects of Torah, the war of Torah, is what drives the process of Geula. And that's why, as we've said, the revelation of Kabbalistic texts and secrets that already began in the Ramban's time, and now accelerated in the Ari's time in the 16th century, and accelerated even further in the 18th century, and now further into the 19th century with the great tzaddikim. And of course, we have access now to go daven at the graves of these great Mekubalim, tzaddikim. So we have now access to this great part of Torah. And if you understand that that's what's going on, then you understand that the light of Torah is the constant force that has been moving us through this preparation for Shabbos. Hence, what do you do when you begin Shabbos? You light the candles. You light kiner mitzvah, v'torah, or. And anybody who's on the kav of or, who's along with the light of Torah and the study of Torah in depth, especially, and according to the ways of halacha, is riding that wave, okay, is a contributor. Now, in this week's parsha, we have a number, the past week's parsha, we had Toldos Vayetze, is that we had a number of difficult issues. There's a connection between two seemingly unconnected parts of the parsha. Let's follow the logic from Parshas Vayetze. Okay, Yetze Yaacov. And I say this because there was an original yeshiva that even predated the days of Abraham, but only came into its full power in the days of Abraham. But there was a primordial yeshiva.
The Shem and Aver?
Yeshiva of Shem and Aver. So I want to explore with you today, what was that yeshiva all about? What was learned at that yeshiva? Did they study Baba Kama? I mean, what did they do over there? Did they have a Musar Seder? What did they learn?
I thought maybe philosophical ideas.
So let's explore what some of the Perushim are. But we do know that Rashi references the fact that Yaakov Avinu, Parshas Vayetze, this week's Torah reading, is that he goes to Haran only after having been where for 14 years?
Shem Aver.
Well, not exactly.
No.
The yeshiva of, Rashi says, of Aver.
Aver.
Doesn't mention Shem. So that ha'ara is a question in Rashi, because Rashi says that Yosef learned all the Torah. It was Ben Zikunim Hulo was the wise son of Yaakov, who taught him everything that he learned in which yeshiva? Shem ve'Aver. Problem, because here we identify that Yaakov Avinu only went to the yeshiva of Aver, whereas Yaakov apparently had Masorah tradition from Shem as well. It's just that his 14 years of learning were primarily not with Shem. He had already left that yeshiva.
Oh, you mean there were two different
Yeah, he went from Israel to Lakewood, and Lakewood to wherever, He switched yeshivas because he's dating. No, literally.
So there was tuition.
That's what they do in Lakewood. They put you in the freezer. Freezer means that you came to Lakewood. You can't go out right away. Why don't you just learn a little bit? For Yaakov, it was 14 years in the freezer. It was a very, very big freezer.
It was for tuition free because he didn't have any money.
It had to have been tuition free, yeah. Because he had zero money, exactly right. And that's part of what the learning is about, as we'll see in a moment. We'll see in a moment that was precisely what the yeshiva is. So our first question is, what does it mean that Yaakov was in the yeshiva of Aver? And what does it mean that Yitzchak, as we know, had gone to the yeshiva of Shem ve'Aver? At what point?
After the Akedah?
Immediately after the Akedah. And how many years apparently did he spend there? I think. How old is Yitzchak when he gets married?
37. He was 40 when he got married.
40 when he gets married.
So,
how many years did he spend in yeshiva?
3 years.
3 years. That's pretty, even today, that's pretty typical. You're 18 years old, they send you to yeshiva for 3 years, 21, you go back according to the modern day Rosh Yeshivas, you have to get married at 21.
What was the
Right?
difference?
Because of the
between-
Shiur crisis. What?
What was the difference between the two yeshivas, the learning?
Okay, I'm gonna get to that. And what did they learn altogether? Okay, so that's number one.
Did they serve
Was Shem
food
still
also?
alive at the time that?
Great question,
Yeah,
great
I
question.
wanted to
So
know.
some people want to say that Shem must have passed away. Now you can make the cheshbon, which I'm not going to do, but that doesn't answer Rashi having mentioned that Yosef learned from Yaakov Avinu the Torah of Shem ve'Aver. It looks like Shem is alive.
He lived more than Abraham.
Did Shem outlive Abraham? Well, I don't want to get into the numbers right now because we'll get a little plunted, as they say in Yiddish.
Fine.
But suffice it to say is that this yeshiva exists. Now, where did the yeshiva exist? It's a really good question. What are the possibilities? Where do we see Shem at all living? Where did he live? We know that he lived in Yerushalayim at the time of Avram, right? So it's quite possible that he went to Eretz Yisrael
She was a kotel.
either simultaneous with Avram or prior to Avram. Okay? Now, if he goes, we don't find any reference that Yaakov took Shem. So the simple thing is that he encountered him there in Yerushalayim, right? But where was Shem right after the Mabul? Where did he start out? Where did he start rebuilding his life? Where were they? Which country were they in? Turkey. They got off the boat in Turkey, right? Ararat, we say, is Kurdistan, the territory of the Kurds, nice people. And then they start making their way south towards Iraq. And that's what it is, Kurdistan, Iraq. Then eventually what? Which is all Mesopotamia. And then moving eastward towards Syria and Lebanon, across the Fertile Crescent, and then making their way down into Eretz Yisrael, following the path that Avram Avinu himself followed.
Just him or the whole family? All the dogs and children?
You mean Shem?
Yeah.
Great question.
Well, what was
So-
the question?
So the question is,
Just
who did Shem go with?
who went?
So here's a hint. Here's a hint. I heard this from Rabbi Feiner. He made a good observation. He said that if you look at the genealogy of Shem, right? Shem Yulad Gamhu. How is he identified? Listen carefully. Avi kol b'nei Aver. He's the father of Aver. Well, wait. Achi Yefes Agadol. Now Shem is also referred to as the brother of Yefes. Ooh, I mean, yeah, okay. Yefes was older than him. So what? Maybe. What's the significance of that? But look who we gave birth to. B'nei Shem, Elam, v'Ashur. Elam, anybody know what Elam is?
Oh, I used
Elam is Persia, Iran. Elam is Iran, or at least very southern Iraq. Ashur is Mesopotamia, northern Iraq, and heading towards Turkey and Syria. Arpachshad, who is also in that area. Lud ve'Aram. Now Aram, we know there's something called Aram Naharayim, which is between two rivers in towards the eastern Syria, and then that's where Haran is. That's where Haran is. That's the place where Avram left for Eretz Yisrael, all the way very close to Eretz Yisrael. And then there's also another place called Aram Tzova. Aram Tzova, which is where the Syrians come. Right? They are even close. They're even closer to us. Right? Even closer to Eretz Yisrael. Because Aram Naharaim is north past the Euphrates River up there, but I believe that Aleppo and those towns are a little bit south and closer to us. All right, that's my impression.
But near Damascus or no?
Yeah, close as
Right.
almost to Damascus.
Okay.
Damascus is very interesting because it is the boundary of
Is
Eretz
that
Yisrael.
Damashek?
Boundary, yeah. Who comes from Damascus?
Eliezer.
Eliezer, Eved Avram, who's known as, right, Damesek Eliezer. So therefore, Eliezer is, that is like the boundary of Chutz La'aretz, at least in the times of Avram Avinu, and we'll see what happens in the future, whether Damesek will become part of Eretz Yisrael. It's another discussion, but yes, the probability is that every piece of land that Avram Avinu ever walked on
Is it part of it?
has a connection. It's called Yerushas Avram. some of Avram's kids have to get it. A certain part went to us. Other parts went to other kids, Yishmael. But will that be the case in the end? I don't believe so, because ultimately Yishmael is what? Is an Aver, and Sarimenu says, Lo Yerush, he's not going to inherit anything. So ultimately all the lands of Yishmael have to revert to the master, which is Yitzhak, and therefore all that land is ours.
Rabbi, what about the matanos that Abraham gave before to make sure that, and he sent them away, that they may come?
Right.
So, do they, those matanos count?
Yeah, well, we don't know what the Matanos are. Chazal tell us that it was their Shem Tuma. Shem Tuma means he taught them
Oh, yeah.
wizardry, white magic. We'll call it white magic, not black magic. Chas v'shalom. Not urging demons and
What is white man?
white magic. And this is what's going to bring us around to the corner of what Shem and Aver knew. Okay? White magic is that you have an understanding of the spiritual nature of creation.
Okay.
That behind it are malachim and whatever spiritual forces connected to the mazalos, and that you can, through prayer or whatever it is, petitions, you can actually manipulate nature and even create life.
This is coming
Rabbi
up.
Aver is just teaching this in Nefesh Chaim.
Oh
He
yeah?
calls it black magic.
He gave them black magic, he says, Shem
He calls
Tuma.
it black,
Who-
Shem Tuma.
Yeah, it does say the word Shem Tuma, Masaran. That's
Who-
true.
Who said that?
Rabbi
But
Aver
then-
is teaching Nefesh Chaim.
I mean, he's learning that he gave them, black magic. I find that a little difficult to believe that Avram would do that and send them away. Why would Avram do something that's usher? We know that Avram kept Kol Torah Kula.
Yeah, both of them.
The reason why, I would say, you can mention this to Rabbi Haber, you can even say that I said it. I thought that it's hard to imagine Avram doing anything related to Tuma. What that means is this. The real life that will give force and energy to the world is the Torah of Avram, which is what? Eitz Chayim Hi. It's the Nevuah that he gets. Nevuah that he receives directly from Hashem. In fact, I just saw today, the Medrash says that all three of the Avos learned in Yeshiva. It says, Avram Zakein v'Yashav v'Yeshiva. He was sitting in the Yeshiva of Shem and Aver. In those days, when he was married to Keturah and the other wives, he was back in Yeshiva. Yitzchak was Zakein, it says that Avram, that he was Zakein, and then Yaacov was Zakein. That means that they were Zakenim, they were elders like Yeshiva, Rosh Yeshiva. So perhaps the pshat is like this. Even though Avraham had information predating Torah, as Adam, Shem, and Aver did, about the mystical realities that went into the creation, right? And people who did Avodah Zarah weren't stupid. I mean, they knew precisely which planet, which constellation they understood was connected to which force, wind, energy, fertility, whatever it was. And they were trying to bring karbanos to curry the favor of the angels. That was the big mistake of the door of Enosh. The big mistake was they forgot that Shem is in charge of all these angels, right? But that's in the world of the B'nai Noach, which have no, as the Ramchal explains, they have no connection to the tree of life. If you want to be a non-Jew, and you want eternal life, okay, that's fine. You can even have Olam Haba as a non-Jew, as long as you accept the concept of the Torah that was given to the Avos and through Moshe Rabbeinu, to Am Yisrael, and perform and live your life according to which rules? The Sheva Mitzvah B'nai Noach. You will get a portion of the world to come. Maybe not everybody agrees to that, but basically, according to Rambam. However, if they want to go the next step and graft themselves onto the tree of life, right? Then they've even made a deeper connection, and they will become part of Klal Yisrael. They will not be what's known as a ger. They will be known as a ger tzedek, as opposed to a ger toshav. Okay. In fact, that's what Aver calls himself, ger v'toshav ani. And everybody asks, what do you mean, ger toshav? Rashi says, But yeah, Avram really was a Ger Toshav at that point because he was just beginning. It was not. It was undifferentiated. Am Yisrael was as yet undifferentiated. The beginning of the differentiation process began really with the birth of Yitzchak. That was the turning point.
The
Hence,
birth of Yitzchak?
and of course the Akedah, the
Is
death of
the birth
Sarah.
of Yitzchak?
All right. So let's go back. So what we have said so far. Let's just recap for a second. So you understand that the Shem Tuma was that it was true, but essentially it was only being utilized in a context of Avodah Zarah. Avram maybe had the idea to correct the issues of Avodah Zarah by showing them that really there's an overarching Hashem behind it. And I even noticed, by the way, I think that the Hindus, and I've heard that India was the main place where his kids went, they do have this conception that the world is like resting on some sort of elephant or something. You ever hear that? Is that true?
No, that is called Enosh. That's the god of the elephant. Yes.
What?
Oh my goodness. You hear what you just said? Enosh. Enosh is the person who started Avodah Zarah in
Yeah,
the
right.
world. But what did he do? Rambam explains in Avodah
Yeah,
Zarah.
and he said that,
He said,
like,
yeah,
when we give honor to Hashem, then we give to his servants.
that's correct. It
But
was a-
later on, they forgot that,
They forgot.
that they're the servants, and they started to just serve them,
Right, and they completely forgot about Hashem.
Right.
And just remembered what the lower. But why do I say that? Because in terms of Kabbalah, we know, and then we're learning this in a related shiur, that Hashem created the space of the world, right? It's called Makom. Hashem is the Makom of the world. Inside the space that Hashem created are all the worlds. The four major worlds that the Kabbalah speaks of, the realm of the Neshamos, the realm of the Spheros, everything that exists. The whole chunk, as it were, exists within this great big space that Hashem created and gave energy to. So if people in the East have a sense that their world is resting on something else, what they're really beginning to touch on is that there's another makom, there's another reality. Because a scientific mind would never say that. A scientific mind would just say, I don't see any other world, I don't see anything. What you see is what you get, and they wouldn't posit that there's some other force that's kind of holding this space together. Okay? So we could speculate a lot. I think it's a lot of fun to speculate this, but I would like to Melamed Schus on Avraham Avinu that he didn't give out Tuma. What he gave them was a correction to the door of Enosh's mistake. He said, yeah, I'm expecting you to be Jewish. I'm expecting you to be Noahites. Right? And how are you going to relate to God? He says, well, Halavai, you'll stick around and learn Torah, but that's not happening. So let me at least let you go back to Adamites. Adamites who knew to worship God.
This he's saying to his sons, or this he's saying the sons for the people back?
I think he sent them
low,
east.
low expectations of his sons?
I think his expectations of his sons, who he sent as shluchim. There's no doubt in my mind that he sent them not just for them. Why did he send them there?
Yeah.
He sent them to influence the ancient world, which was steeped in Avodah Zarah, ad hayom hazeh. It was Avram's last outreach effort. But he couldn't do it himself anymore, because that wasn't his task anymore. He now had to develop Torah. And Torah is not going to work for those guys. What?
These low expectations that you said, that they're never going to take Torah. The big expectations he had of his sons, that he gave up on them and sent them there to give, or
Yes,
was
because
that
they
what he
were
knew about the
Yeah, because they were the students, they were the sons of Keturah. Keturah is only a slave, cannot be any higher than that. It's a big question whether Keturah, as we said last week, was his wife or was his, but Rashi is quite clear. The definitive opinion of Chazal is that Keturah never rose to the level of being a wife. If she did, we'd be of Gahak Tzoros. Not that we're not, but that was the whole thing of the tshuva of Yishmael, was to accept the fact that he was the slave of
The son of his dad.
Yitzhak and not the replacement of Yitzhak,
She was
or the equal, or the higher. So, yeah.
Did Abraham have corruption too?
According to Rashi, no.
What is she?
According to
Concubines, you mean?
Yeah, according to Rashi, no.
No, because
No, he had one concubine. even though it says, B'nai Hapilagshim,
That's what I'm asking you.
but,
Who was
go
his
ask Rashi,
concubine?
Rashi says that that's
Oh,
Pshat.
no,
What?
but you said that she wasn't his wife, but she could be his concubine.
Right, because that's what Hagar said, because that was the deal that Sarah made with Avram.
Right.
That's why we said, Hamasi Alecha, she was angry at Avram because she was acting not as a slave, but as a liberated woman. You know, when someone marries when you, it's even a halacha, like if somebody wants to marry his own Canaanite woman slave, what does he have to do first?
She has to convert.
How? He has to free her,
Yeah.
Right.
right, so that she can be a full-fledged convert, and then a Jew can marry her. So if a master wants to marry a female slave, he's got to free her. So Hagar has every reason to believe that she was free and therefore equal on some level to Sarah, or even greater, because she now had the first child.
But this is before Torah was given, so why do we have these?
It was a general concept that Chazal give us that the Avos kept Torah.
Yeah.
The Avos, now, whether they kept Torah because they knew it, or because they were so, like, Hashem, Shem, Hashem doesn't allow righteous people to do wrong things. Like, he saves them from error. You know what I mean? It's like Hashem guided them so that all of their actions. But the simple pshat is that they intuitively knew Torah, which brings us back to our original question. What was that original Torah? And Chazal tell us that Torah begins with Avram. So then what was the Yeshiva of Shem Aver? That's my real question. It seems to be a contradiction. Torah begins with Avram, and yet we have the Yeshiva of Shem Aver predating it. And who knows what Adam was learning, because Adam had to learn also and give over to those generations until Shais was born, and then he had to give over to Shais. So I'd like to suggest the following. First, I'll mention the pshat where Yaacov Kamenetsky writes in the Sefer, it's a pretty celebrated word of his, that the Shem Aver were dual yeshivos. He claims that they were separate yeshivos, which would also help answer Rashi's question. It was the yeshiva of Shem and the yeshiva of Aver. It means like you went to, this yeshiva and then you graduated. Yeshiva Ketana, yeshiva Gedola, okay? What was the difference? He said because Shem was like Noah, the tzaddik, amidst all the Rishayim of Sodom and everybody else who was living in Israel, who was able to remain faithful to Hashem, right? In the Dor Hamabel, and in also the wicked generation of Sodom. That's pretty good. So Shem,
It's amazing.
yeah, Shem is like literally, he's attached to Hashem. He's like bound into Hashem, I'll say. Even his very name is bound into Hashem. And he has the ability to look at the world and experience the world and address the world from the correct perspective of Hashem is our creator, Hashem gave us certain mitzvos. The Rambam says that Adam got 6 mitzvos. Adam got 6 mitzvos, right? And we had spoken a couple shiur back about how they were really 3 mitzvos that shadowed each other. Do you remember that?
Could you just remind us?
Sure. See, you're schlepping me backwards and backwards. I'm all the way back in Bereshis now. I can't move forward. Maybe that's good. Okay, I'll for the sake of this is one of my what I truly understand on after seeing many Rashis and Midrashim over a course of years and years of teaching. I'll tell you my basic premise, and I found it beferish in the words of the Vilna Gaon in the Likud Even Shlema. And I was thinking, where is it? I said, I know this to be true, but I don't know the key source. And the Vilna Gaon says it beferish. He says there are 3 primary sins that human beings have to contend with. Because the purpose of our lives is to improve our character, to refine ourselves. The entire process of the development of Am Yisrael and the Avos is to become Yesharim, to become Tamimim, to become, right? That's what Hashem is teaching the world. Right, that's the whole point of Bereshis. And then further, then Am Yisrael has to go through it as a collective, and as an individual, but as a nation, and that's the whole Torah, really. Now, what are those 3 primary Averos? Says the Vilna Gaon. Number 1 is Kas, anger.
What?
Kas, anger.
Kas.
Number 2, taiva, just bodily desires, which includes food and everything else. Any physical gratification, any sensory gratification is taiva. And the third one is gaiva. Gaiva is desire to be one up over people, to lord over people, to view people, that look down your nose at people, and to achieve high stature. Then, here comes the linchpin. Exactly. So I've always suggested that the Mishnah in Avos is not just a Mishnah in Avos, but is the key to everything, and especially of understanding Bereshis. Why? So it's Rabbi Yossi Kapar who says, Akina v'kavod v'taiva, motzinas ha'adam and olam, perak dalet and Pirkei Avos. Says the Vilna Gaon befeirush that kas correlates to kina. Taiva is of course taiva, right? And kavod is gaiva. All right, Evan Shlema, first chapter. It's the collected teachings of the Vilna Gaon, mostly and primarily based on Mishlei. Mishlei, which is what I like to call the lost wisdom of Jerusalem, the teachings of Shlomo HaMelech, that the world came to learn from him what this world is all about and what people need to do in this world. And he gave, by the way, now I'm going to really go out on a limb. You ready? 3 books of Shlomo HaMelech. What are they?
Shiur, and
Okay, Mishlei. Can you correlate them to the 3 major problems? Koheles is against Taiva, obviously. Have a love volley, man. But are you getting all excited about this world for? What, you think? Because you have a nice car, and you have a nice this, and you have a beautiful mink coat. Nothing wrong with mink coats. I'm not one of those animal advocate persons. That's for sure. Koheles is to help people rid themselves of the problem of Taiva. Okay? What is keneged kas, or anger? Foolishness, chachma, mishlei, obviously, because it's about wisdom of the world and understanding God's way in the world, so you won't be angry because basically the world isn't going your way. So mishlei helps you align yourself with the midos and the ratzon of Hashem with chachma. Okay, and now that would mean that what's kavod? Shiur ha-shirim. Shiur ha-shirim primarily deals with the special status of Am Yisrael's Am ha-nivchar, which certainly is the issue of stratification and kavod. And it has mostly to do with the base HaMikdash, because Shiur ha-shirim is a nevuah that Shlomo HaMelech got on the opening day of the Beis HaMikdash that he built, revealing to him a sad truth. Does the couple in Shiur ha-shirim really get together in the end?
No.
Brach Dodi, you're out of here. It's a tragedy. Shiur ha-shirim is a tragedy. What does it mean? Is that the relationship between Am Yisrael and Hashem and Torah, which will find its way in the love nest known as Har Habayis and the Beis HaMikdash and the Kodesh Kodashim, is a story that will take a long time to